Why can't Christians stay out of politics and mind their own business? That's a great question. I appreciate you guys came out swinging, you know what I mean?
Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Frank Colicurcio, where hard questions get honest answers. I'm Evan Catlap. Frank says it best, just because you believe it doesn't make it true. So every episode we test what we believe about God, life, culture, and Jesus without hype, without cliches, without dodging the real issues. From organized crime to radical faith, Frank brings a perspective you just can't fake. Bring your doubt, bring your questions. Let's talk, frankly.
Hey everybody, Frank Colicurcio here. Welcome to the Frankly Speaking podcast. The podcast is driven by your questions. So when you guys go to franklyspeaking.net and you hit that banner, that button that says Ask Frank a Question, that's what's going to drive the content. So go there, ask all the questions you want. Some of the questions we're answering today, we'll see how many we get to. Like the most asked question was, why can't Christians stay out of politics and mind their own business? That's a great question. We're going to get that. I appreciate you guys came out swinging. You know what I mean? We're going to talk about the hard stuff. And again, if you don't know yet, if you didn't get to episode 1, this is not a debate. Oh my goodness, this is not a debate. It's not an argument. This is a discussion. Okay, I gave my life to Christ when I was 30 years old. If you guys read the book, you know that. So I totally understand where you're coming from. I remember where I was. I know what I believed. But like we said in episode number 1, just because you believe it doesn't make it true. You know, it's not a cowardly lion thing where I do believe, I do, doesn't make something true. It's the object of your belief that must carry the weight of truth. And so that's why questions are good. That's why this is a discussion on this podcast and not a debate. And you're welcome to ask me any questions. And if I don't know the answers, I will do my best to research and find out the answers for you. And there's nothing off limits. So why can't Christians stay out of politics and mind their own business? We'll start with that one today. Another question you guys asked we might get today is, how can you vote for Trump and call yourself a Christian? Hopefully we'll get to that one as well. If not, we'll do it on podcast episode 3. Another one, what do you think about the Iran war? I think a lot of things about the Iran war. That should be a great discussion. And from there, you guys ask all kinds of more questions we'll get to in the days ahead, as well as the ones you guys will ask after today's podcast. Here's one. Why do my Christian friends say I have to get my life together, stop sinning, lose my bad habits, and prove I'm good enough before God will let me become a Christian? I'll just say real quick, because your friends are ill-informed. I mean, they're well-intentioned, but God doesn't require any of that stuff. And I particularly like this one and look forward to that in the days ahead. Why would I ever want to become a Christian when they're all a bunch of hypocrites? That's going to be a great one. And again, I'll just start right off the bat. I'm a hypocrite. Am I a Christian? Yeah, I've given my life to Christ, but I'm not perfect. The only one that was perfect, the only one that was good was Jesus himself. And so Christians, what we do is we strive to become like him. We grow in our likeness of him, but we're so far off. We still mess up so much. So when we suddenly get judgmental and think we're so good, that's hypocrisy. And we're going to address all that. But let's keep the simple things simple. Why can't Christians stay out of politics and mind their own business? As I get ready to answer that, I know that probably the majority of you that are here on the podcast have come here from the book, the novel that I wrote, Strippers, Lies, and Spaghetti. I know at the end of that book, as you look at, that book was inspired by my life. And so you see there's a transformation there. I had religion. I thought I was a good guy. But I also thought that being a born-again Christian was a cult. Okay, so it's a crazy story and a fun read. So I come from the same perspective that you guys come from. And when you got to the end of that book, I'm hoping you're here because you saw that barcode and you hit it with your phone, sent you to the website, you found the podcast. So I want you to know that I'm here to have a discussion with you guys. Uh, Send those questions in. The most asked questions will dictate which ones we hit. We'll try and do 2 or 3 podcasts a week, but it's not a debate. We're not going to call each other names, all that nonsense. I want to talk with you. I want to have a conversation. So bring it all in, please. And you guys are welcome. So let's get to it. Why can't Christians stay out of politics and mind their own business? All right. Remember, I say this respectfully. And again, if I offend you, send me an email and tell me why. Let's figure it out. But if I'm answering that question, why can't they mind their own business? I would submit that the church isn't becoming more political. Politics are trying to take control of the moral compass of this nation. In other words, it's politics. It's the government that is moving into the moral lane of this nation. And let me also say, I'm an old guy. I have this unique perspective, and I just kind of realized this because I am so old, about turned 73. I've lived through 5 generations. I've seen them all. I'm a baby boomer born in 53. I've seen Gen X. I lived through the millennials, Generation Y, Generation Z, the generation now, Generation Alpha. I've lived through all of those. I have lived through 11 presidential party changes. Now think about that. I have seen that in my lifetime. I've seen the nation change, the culture change. I see a picture from, when I was 30 years old, my altitude was this high and I could see somewhat, but now it's 73 and all of this. And what's fascinating, let's just talk about presidential changes. All 11 of those changes was a change of party. If you go back and look at the history book, it's crazy, but a Democratic president, then followed by a Republican, followed by a Democrat, followed by a Republican. There's no double ups in that. It's just fascinating that the nation tends to balance itself off. And that's the greatest thing about America. It's a free nation here. It's a nation where we get to vote who's going to lead us. So there's this kind of like automatic process that helps balance us. And so when I look at this, I'm not looking at it with short-term vision. I'm looking at it after living through so many political party changes and all of that. So right now, when you say, why don't Christians or why can't they stay out of politics? I don't think that they're moving into politics. I think politics is moving into that moral domain. They're moving out of their lane. They're not staying in their lane. They're coming to ours. Here's a great example. So my granddaughter Frankie, who is my namesake as well, she got married in Idaho this last weekend. So Diane and I are traveling back from Idaho, and when you're going down the freeway and there's construction, so they put all the lanes into one lane. So we're on Interstate 5 heading north, and they have the signs up for miles, and we're all down to one lane, and we're still a mile or two away from the actual single lane. But, everybody moves over, and all of a sudden, this car comes flying by. One of those guys that just, even though everybody's moved over, one guy just shoots way ahead of you and stuff, to get up way up front, and you just kind of grumble. Anyway, when that happened, a car about 5 cars in front of me, this black Mercedes slides over half into that lane, to block it, saying, hey, you guys aren't doing this. I got a mile and a half I'm waiting, and you're getting behind me. I've been waiting for a while. That kind of guy, and he's taking his own hands. And I looked over at Diane, and I says, man, that's so funny that he's doing that. He's doing what we're all feeling. Just then, a Land Rover pulls up, one of those big new ones, the beauty, that, I don't know, $100,000 car. It pulls up, and as it pulls up to pass, this Mercedes slides over to stop it, so it slams on its brakes. And I look at Diana, I go, man, what's going to happen now? And so there's just kind of like this standoff for a moment. Mercedes half over, the Land Rover is sitting there, and all of a sudden the Land Rover hits the gas and tries to go over on the shoulder of the road to pass the Mercedes, and the Mercedes shoots over and blocks him. And I mean, they come very close, within 3 or 4 feet of each other. And the Land Rover comes back, into the lane. And, we're just barely moving around like this. And then all of a sudden, the Land Rover does it again and hits to the shoulder of the road. And the Mercedes goes over to block him. And the Land Rover switches back to the left side of the road like he's going to pass on the inside. And the Mercedes goes back, and the Land Rover floors it and shoots by him. And it was just, I thought we could have a little road rage there or something, which wouldn't have been good. But what was the problem? Land Rover was in the wrong lane. He should have been back behind everybody else, minding his business, doing the right thing. And if I'm being honest, I think that's where we're at. That's where we're at right now when it comes to politics and this accusation that the church is moving into politics. I don't think it is. I think it's the government that's moving into the arena of the moral compass of this nation. What is the government? Think about it. Government is to set laws for public order. The government defends our nation. That's a good thing. The government protects our communities. The government is supposed to be doing good things, and they have been for years, right? They've been in their own lane. But then, from my perspective, I think it was back with Roe versus Wade. I'm not sure exactly what year it was. I think it was 73. Anyway, all of a sudden, the government moves into that moral area and says, hey, it's okay to murder a child in the womb, and we're going to call it health care. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, go, whoa, that's not good. That's moving into the lane the government should not be in. They should not be governing the morals of this country. And then again, it starts back then, but then especially in the last 20 years, really in the last 10 years, as the culture is changing, and depending on which political party is in, they started to move in more. The next thing they did was they started to redefine marriage, right? Instead of marriage between a man and a woman, all of a sudden they're same sex and all that. And make sure you understand what I'm saying. My personal beliefs is a marriage between a man and a woman. But what people do in their lives is up to them. That's what living in this nation is all about. It's a democracy, it's freedom of speech. That's what our forefathers gave us in this great place. So what people do privately is their business. But when the government comes in and starts to write laws, I think that's where all of a sudden the church stands up and goes, whoa, 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 wait a second. When the government writes laws that redefine marriage, all of a sudden there's an issue. They're out of their lane in the lane of the moral compass of the nation. And same thing with redefining, as we have with redefining marriage, same thing with gender. All of a sudden, whoa, wait a second. You're governing an area that should be discussed, talked about, and decided upon in each family's home, right? In the privacy of their own home. That's where they come to conclusions about these beliefs. And calling the taking of an unborn life health care, again, overstepping into our lives. And then I think another thing that just gets crazy is when they use the schools or the school system to educate our children and teach them these new morals that they've come up with. That's not the government's right. That's a family's right. That is your right. You as a parent, as a mom, as a dad, not only have the responsibility, you have the right in the privacy of your home to raise your children to believe what you believe is best, what you believe to be true, to raise your children according to your morals and your convictions. It's not for the school to indoctrinate our kids or to shape the souls of our children. No. No, they don't have the right to get gender care without a parent's knowledge, uh, that's a misstep of the government. And so, is the church moving into politics? No, I think politics have moved into the moral arena. And of course, the church, because we would come from a conviction from the Bible. And I know a lot of you would say, wait a second, the Bible, it's a nice moral book, a good story book, but Arks and Animals 2x2, come on, Frank. This is not a book that the historicity can be defended through archaeology and all of that. Well, again, I used to believe that, as you know, when you read the book. As a matter of fact, on the website, there is a series. When I was a pastor for 20 years, there was a series we did called The Bible on Trial. And what I did was I took the 4 weeks, I took the greatest attacks against the Bible and all of that, and went through and evaluated all of it and brought the evidence on both sides to really put the Bible to the test and see if the historicity is defendable, and if the archaeology discoveries have defended it. And you can get that series. It's right on the website. Go to the message page. Well worth each message. I think is about an hour, but it's just answers so many questions. And that's what you want to do. You want to keep answering questions till you find truth, right? That's what this website is all about. So when the government moved in, started back in 73 and coming through and started redefining the moral compass of the nation, it wasn't the church or Christians that moved into the governing lane. They came this way. And then the church had to stand up. I mean, when the lines became blurred, the church refused to call evil good, and they stood up, and they refused to redefine truth. I mean, we'll talk more about that. I don't want to go that direction anymore. So, let's go back right now and just for a moment, look at what the Bible says. What I'm going to do on each of the podcasts is I'm going to do what I call a doggy bag. My son, Jade Gabriel, the precious joy of my life. I have 6 kids, 27 grandkids, but my last child, my joy of joys, has Down syndrome. He's 24 years old and he is just a hoot. But one of the things he loves when we go to restaurants is that doggy bag. If there's leftovers, he wants them. Now, why does he want them? Because he wants to eat the food so bad? No, because every morning I make him an omelet and whatever's in that doggy bag goes into the pan and we stir that up a little bit and scramble some eggs with it and we make him an omelet. But we always take that doggy bag home. So what I'm going to do with the podcast is I'm going to give you guys a doggy bag. I'll put it on the website so you can get it in print form. But I'm just going to give you a couple verses from the Bible that talk about the question that we're asking. So let's go ahead and get started real quick with the doggy bag for today's question about the government and staying in their own lane. First of all, God established government. All right. God established government. In Romans 13:1, it says, "Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God." So just know that God is pro-government. God created mankind and knew that we could not exist if we were not governed. Now, I'm not saying that every government that has ever existed is good. No, we know of terrible governments and atrocities around the world that have taken place and stuff. But the government itself is God's intention and his design to give us order, to protect us, to protect civilization, to protect nation against nation. So God establishes government, part 2, to serve the people, to serve the people. Romans 13:4 says, "For the one in authority is God's servant for your good." You see, so government is in authority for our good. They're there to serve us for our good. That was God's intention. God established government to serve people, and the final part, by establishing and upholding laws that are just. Proverbs, there we go, get that on the screen for you. Proverbs 8:15. By me, this is God speaking, by me kings reign, and rulers issue decrees that are just. Okay? So that was God's intention with government. That is the role of government in civilization. And I would even go so far, if we go back to the Declaration of Independence, of which I happen to have a copy in front of me, 1976, listen to this and just kind of think it through for a second. We hold these truths to be self-evident, to be obvious, that all men are created equal. Excellent. That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. See, God is immediately mentioned in the foundation of this nation that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. See that? As a believer, I'm not out to make everybody believe what I believe. I'm not out to, I know there's this thing that constantly about Christian nationalists and all that sort of stuff. I really don't hold to making everybody believe what I believe. I love the freedom that this nation was founded upon. I love the fact that each person gets to raise up their children in the way that they should go with their beliefs and convictions. I love the freedom of religion. I love all of that. I love truth. That's the whole reason at my age that I'm doing a podcast answering your questions, because let's have a discussion. Let's go. If I'm wrong about something, I'm willing to learn. I want to learn. But this is a great nation, but it's a nation that has been changing when it comes to this question. It's been shifting, not because suddenly the church ran over and wanted to take over politics, although I know there's a lot of people in the church that are, have that desire or something like that. But I think what has happened is the government has moved in to start taking control and governing things that we should be able to decide for ourselves, like the topics that we have discussed today. And I think things have changed as an old guy watching all those generations, watching all those presidential changes. If I think we tend to forget things like the moral values this nation was founded upon. For instance, on our money, it says, "In God we trust." Now, you know what nobody ever says? Did you know that the first dollar bill, I wrote it down somewhere here. Yeah, the first dollar bill was printed in 1862. It did not have "In God we trust" on it. It was 95 years later. Think about that. 95 years later, when "In God We Trust" first appeared, thanks to President Eisenhower, wanting to establish, because of course things with Russia right then were so volatile, wanted to establish that this nation was built on a confidence and a trust in God. You see, so when we ask this questions, why are Christians moving into politics and why can't they mind their own business? Again, I just think that it's the other way around. Now, if you don't agree with me, make sure you go on the website, ask a question, give me your evidence. We'll continue to discuss it here. I think we're about 25 minutes, and I'm trying to keep these things around 30 minutes. So you can listen to them in a drive time. So I think we'll call episode 2 done. Remember, you know what to do. Subscribe, like, share. Again, franklyspeaking.net. Go to the website, hit the Ask Frank a Question button. Also, if you're here from the book, Strippers, Lies, and Spaghetti, and you're just looking for truth, you're going, you know what? If God's true, I would like to figure that out. Everything on the website, all the materials that we're producing and putting there are going to be free for you. Um, and again, it's not because I'm wealthy or I have all this money or stuff, but folks who are believers are going to support the website. They're going to support the production of it and all of that. And they're also going to pay for the information that you guys need. If you want a Bible, I'm going to send you a Bible for free. If you want some of the other books that I've written or the books that we're going to make available there, there's going to be a button there, and you just go there and we're going to provide that for you. Why? Because I'm trying to talk you into something? No. Always remember this. If I can talk you into it, somebody else can talk you out of it. You know what I mean? You gotta keep asking questions until you know because you know because you know that it's true. And then embrace that. Put your faith in it. Okay? I'm not here to persuade. I'm here to discuss difficult things with you guys, things the culture is going through, questions you have. What would God's perspective be on this thing? That's what we're going to talk about. And so, again, I'm going to make all of those materials and stuff available to you. I get it. And no, you don't have to show credit cards or any of that nonsense. I'm not here to embarrass and, or be stupid or any of that stuff. I just want to give it to you. I want to bless you. I was in the exact same place you were in. I thought things were good with me and God. As it turned out, I had religion, but I didn't actually have a trusting. I believed in him. But again, the Bible, James 2:19 says, even the demons believe and shudder. And I mean, I think we all know that demons aren't going to heaven. I think God has a place for them called hell. So belief is not enough. There's got to be something more to it, this trusting belief that the Bible describes as faith. And that's what you're looking for. You're trying to see if you want to put your faith in God. I'm going to walk that out with you. Also, one more thing real quick. I did have a question that popped in and said, hey, all you Christians indoctrinate your children. You make them believe what you believe. And I just want to address that real quick. When it comes to our children, I think every parent has the responsibility and the right to teach them in the home what they believe. Am I teaching my children? I taught all of my children that the Bible was true, that it was historically accurate, that it was the inspired word of God. Because I'm some religious, bent trying to indoctrinate them? No. It's because as a non-believer, 30 years old, I started asking questions, and I asked and asked with an intent to find out, to prove the Bible wasn't legitimate, only to come to the conclusion that it was God's inspired word. So I want to give you this last example. If you were driving, let's say it's a storm, terrible storm, stormy night, rain, lightning, everything, and you're driving along, and all of a sudden the lightning in front of you lights up the bridge you're about to go over, and you notice that the river is blowing the bridge out. There's no bridge, so you slam on the brakes. Thankfully, you don't go over the edge and die, but the bridge is out, and yet there's cars coming behind you. What are you going to do? You're going to pull the car around, turn on the flashers, jump out, start waving for all you're worth. Hey, the bridge is out. Stop, or you're going to die. You see, when a person becomes convicted of an absolute truth, it's appropriate with everything that they have to teach those that they're responsible for, their children, raising them up to believe those same truths. Why? Because we love them. We adore our kids. We don't want them to make the same mistakes we've made. We don't want them to go over the bridge in different areas of their life. So, does a Christian, a Bible-believing Christian, indoctrinate their kids? No. With all the love and passion they have. They teach them what they know. All right. We'll see you guys next podcast. Bye-bye.